welcome back to another episode of the Bet GPT podcast. This is episode 5, and today is the college football preview, part 1. So we have my usual co-host, Austin Slade. We got Austin Hackford back from his 1-episode hiatus. Hack, it's good to have you back in the building, my man. How you doing?
Good. Good evening, gentlemen. Always a pleasure.
How's the road show been?
It's been busy. Wrapped up all the media days. Some conference realignment in the meantime.
Yeah, I'm sure you got some good nuggets for us. So
yeah.
I'm looking forward to that. But real quick, we need to talk about our 6-pack from last week, which there's no other way to put this than saying it was an abject disaster. We went 0-3. Despite my wishes, Slade gave us a plus 160 baseball play, and it lost, believe it or not. He had the White Sox over the Rangers, and I don't even think the White Sox scored a run.
Yeah, Heaney set a career high in strikeouts. So, sometimes it's just bad luck, just a bad beat.
Yeah, which is funny because we were talking about the most strikeouts market, and Strider got second and Heaney got first. Is that right?
Yeah, Heaney's was like projected 5.5, finished with 11. He hasn't had more than 8 all year, but he beat Strider, who had 10 plus in like every game this last couple months.
Yeah, so we lost that play. We also lost the Cubs-Reds under, as I think there was 25 runs in the game. We bet under 8.5.
Yeah,
that ended in the second inning.
They had 20 in that 24-hour period. They scored more runs than they did in 126 years. So sometimes, I guess I'm on a streak of being cold, but we'll live.
If anything, the nice thing about sports is we just randomly get to witness history. So let's just enjoy these performances and tip our cap to them. And we also need to tip our cap. We need to tip our what?
I said the betting gods will balance it out in the long run.
The betting gods, yes. I'm saying we need to tip our cap to the Jets and Browns too, because we once again bet against human performance. We wanted them to score under 33.5. And they scored well above that. They scored a touchdown to push it above 33.5 with like 8 minutes to go.
If you're going to lose a bet by betting against Zach Wilson, you can live with that.
Yeah, he's a dog.
You can't do anything about it.
So, yeah, we went 0-3 last week, and we went up 0.54 units the week before. So we're like basically under, or we're in the negative 2.5 units. Nothing too bad, nothing to worry about, especially when Gunnar Henderson ends up winning AL Rookie of the Year. He shifted to the odds-on favorite in the low plus 100s. We got that at plus 230. We had our EPL plays. So if you haven't listened to the pod for the EPL preview, please listen to episode 4. And then we also bet on Team USA to reach the World Cup semifinals. And I believe they play a couple days from now. So, which would be, I think, August 6th.
I think we also
Speaking of the World Cup, though,
also...
did you see what happened to our queen, Alex Pop?
I saw she scored a goal.
Yeah, well, Germany also got eliminated from the World Cup. They somehow lost to Colombia and Morocco, or excuse me. They beat Morocco in the first match. Second match, they lost to Colombia, and then they played South Korea a couple days ago. She scored for her 4th goal, but they did not win, and Colombia got upset by Morocco, so Germany got eliminated. I don't even really know what to say. It was Alex Pop against the world, and her Germany teammates let us down. So I'm not going to apologize for that bet. It was 16-1. It was down to 3-1.
Could have hedged.
We could have hedged, but we don't hedge on this podcast.
Sometimes we do.
But yeah. So that's kind of where we're at. In terms of the plays we're giving out today, we are not giving out an official 6-pack. We'll save that for, I believe we're going to record next Tuesday, which is August 8th. So we'll have another 6-pack for you guys. We'll probably bet on some more unders in the preseason. I'm not going to shy away from those. But today we're just going to talk college football. Hackford and Slade, they have a lot of good recommendations and leans. And it wouldn't be fair just to kind of dumb it down to 6 picks. We're going to talk about a variety of things. And basically kind of you guys, if you have a connection with one of these picks, then I would tell you to tail one of those. So we can get into college football here. Slade, I'll let you kind of take over as being the host right now. Where do you want to start? What's the move with college football this year?
I mean, let's just quickly talk about the 2023 season and how that's going to shape up. This will be the last year of the 4-team playoff and kind of the college football as we know it with the conference alignment. Starting in 2024, it's going to move to a 12-team playoff. For those of you who don't know how that's going to work, they're going to take the 6 highest ranked conference champions. They'll receive an automatic bid. And then the remainder of the field, so those last 6 spots, are just going to go to the 6 highest ranked teams in the college football ranking, rankings, and then the 4 highest ranked conference champions, they're going to get a bye in the quarters. So then you're going to get in that first round, it'll just be like the 5 versus the 12, the 6 versus the 11, 7 versus 10, 8 versus 9.
Okay, so there's 12 teams in it.
Yes.
It starts in 2024.
Yes.
By 2030, do you think an 8, 9, 10, 11, or 12 seed even gets within 10 points in a game? That's too much. There's no way any of those teams have a chance.
Versus a 5, 6, 7 seed, 8 seed? Or are we just saying like in a semifinal?
Yeah, and in a semifinal. Because I mean the top 4 seeds get a bye.
So I mean a 7 versus 10 seed, I don't feel like is some big mismatch.
Yeah, no, you're right. I should have said 2 wins. So they get into that traditional fair. 4 teams remaining.
I just
feel like. Go ahead.
Who's the 6th conference?
That's what I was going to get to. That's okay. Basically saying the best G5 team.
Yeah.
So that's like Cincinnati or Houston or Boise State.
But at that point, Cincinnati's the Big 12.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying, like, historically speaking. But, like, it would be like – that's the thing, too, is, like, there's not going to be as many good G5 teams if we're all – like, UCF's gone, Houston, Cincy.
Hey, I have a question. With the conference realignment we're about to get in, why doesn't a team like Stanford just get out of the Pac-12 and go to a small conference so they can just take that spot every year? I feel like that's kind of
money.
That's what Oregon and Washington should have done, in my opinion.
They should have stayed in the Pac-12, right?
If they would have stayed in the Pac-12, one of those 2 teams would have got an automatic bid every single year.
Okay, so let's get into that then. What's the realignment look like?
So this summer so far, I'll just go kind of chronologically. Colorado is officially a member of the Big 12. I think that starts 2024. So simple math, 12 plus 1 equals 13. 13 is an odd number. I don't see a conference sticking with that. So it sounds like Arizona's got an offer to be that 14th team. I think as we record, it's not official, but it sounds like it's basically a done deal, barring any last second changes. And then so that left. They were doing a TV negotiation, and I think that obviously was going pretty poorly. And I think that was with Apple TV, but Washington and Oregon were looking around like the Pac-12 might turn into a disaster. The Big Ten vetted them 2 years ago, and it sounds like as of, I think this morning, they extended them an offer to join the Big Ten. So the Big Ten will be 18 teams. I don't know about you guys. I think it's going to get to 20. Do you agree? And do you think who do you want to see as those 2 teams if you do want to see 20?
Hey, real quick, is this for college basketball too and other sports, or how does that work?
I think it's everything.
I think this is cool for basketball, just having more teams in there, because they'll add more conference games and then it'll be maybe less non-conference games. I guess I don't know how that works. Maybe not.
It'll be cool having. I think the Big 12 already got better with basketball, adding Cincinnati and Houston, and UCF kind of sucks. But now if they get Arizona, that's a pretty legit basketball program. But we're not here to talk college basketball. But who else could the Big Ten potentially now? I can't imagine they're just going to stop at 18. I mean, what would you do? 2 9-team leagues, or are you going to do 4 5-team divisions?
Here's what you do: you kick Oregon and Washington out, and as well as Rutgers and Maryland, and you get the traditional Big Ten back in place.
But then you got to get rid of Penn State, right?
No, Penn State's traditional Big Ten.
As of what, like 1990 something?
Yeah, for our lifetime.
Okay.
So, Washington and Oregon are like unofficially in as of today, August 4th.
Yeah, they're not getting a full share.
Is it just for? Did the Big Ten do that just for money? I mean, why are they even doing this?
No,
money.
But the TV deal that they already got, they're not getting more money because they're bringing in Oregon and Washington. So they're just cutting 2 slices of the money that they already agreed on to Oregon and Washington. That's why it doesn't make any sense, at least for this year.
Yeah, Oregon and Washington aren't full members. They're like getting partial share, so they aren't getting a full 1/18th of the pie. I agree. I don't know how that works when you just did a TV deal. I doubt they're going to renegotiate before it even starts. Obviously, they probably are sitting there like the Seattle TV market, Portland TV market, but like those don't really move the needle for college football, I feel like.
No, it doesn't. I don't get it. I can get behind USC, I guess, even though I don't like it, just because they're a brand for college football. But
it's
Oregon,
it's good to get a blue blood in, and Oregon's like 1 level off being a blue blood, maybe 2.
Yeah, but do they really need that? They already have Ohio State, Michigan, now USC, Penn State, the Hawks.
Well, maybe 10 years from now, you talked about kicking teams out. Maybe they will start from the bottom and start gutting it, and they'll get rid of Rutgers or Northwestern.
If a team was going to get kicked out, if a team's going to get kicked out, who is it? It's got to be Northwestern, right?
Probably.
Yeah, they're in trouble for a while for football. I don't know
because they don't bring in money. They're the 4th most popular team in their own city. They're only here for academics.
Yeah.
I guess when I think about what 2 teams could be the 19th and the 20th, I think there's only like 3 or 4 possible teams. I think the one that people are sleeping on is Stanford. I know that you're going to be like, they're kind of similar to Northwestern, but if you're going to do this whole have 4 teams out west, I feel like logistically it makes sense to just make that 6.
But then you're going to have to split. You're going to have to split it back to East and West, and it's just going to be basically the Pac-12 playing each other, then the Big Ten playing each other, and then they meet in the Big Ten championship.
Well, I guess
with a couple crossover games.
Well, I guess what if you did
the Big Ten championship is just the Rose Bowl? That'd be hilarious. It's just
what if they do this? What if they put Stanford in as the 19th team and the 20th team goes hypothetically to Notre Dame, and that's a whole different discussion. But then you have 5 teams out west, and you have 20 teams. You could do 4 5-team pods.
Yeah, I don't.
And they just play. So those teams play each other every year.
If it's 4 5-team pods, how does the championship game is just going to be the top 2 teams out of a 20-team league?
I mean, do you do a semi? See, I don't know.
Yeah, because I don't know how that's going to work. If you have 20 teams and you don't have like a East-West or any divisions, if you just have the top 2 teams playing the championship, there's going to be so many tiebreak. Like, let's say one team goes undefeated, but then the next 3 or 4 teams each have 1 loss. Then you're getting in the championship game off some like 5th tiebreaker.
Yeah, I guess I also don't know how it would work, because if you're already doing a 12-team postseason, what would be the point of having a conference semifinal?
Okay, but should we even be concerned about the conference title in the Big Ten? Because if you look at like the SEC a couple of years ago and it was Georgia, Alabama, Georgia didn't care that they lost the conference title game. They just went to the playoff and then avenged Alabama in the final.
That's true.
So with the playoff being pushed to 12, it doesn't even matter if you get screwed over a tie. If anything, it's like, all right, we don't have to play an extra game. We
I
can
was going to
just
say,
rest.
with the 12-team playoff, does having a conference title game even matter anymore? Because there's only we basically admitted there's only 2 conferences that matter. So there's only going to be 2 conference champions that matter. And then they're going to have to, okay, congrats, you won this conference title game. You played an extra game, possibly 2 games, and your reward is to enter a 12-team tournament. Nobody wants to do that. You would almost be better. I mean, the only thing that you probably get out of that is you have a better chance of getting a bye and being one of those top 4 teams.
That's the thing. Like if it's Ohio State, Michigan, like it, or excuse me, the winner of Ohio State, Michigan playing like Wisconsin or Iowa, it's like the Ohio. As much as you guys don't like hearing it, the Ohio State, Michigan is going to win like 9 times out of 10. That's what history has shown us. So it doesn't even matter that like Wisconsin's in, like they're in it just to try to like sneak into the playoff. If Ohio State loses the Big Ten title game, they're still in. There's 0% chance that an undefeated team in a title game, if they lose, is out of the 12 team. So why do they even care? I guess it would just be for the bye.
It would literally just be for seeding. I feel like it's going to get to the point where the commissioner of the SEC and the Big Ten need to just like collab and be like, how do we want to work our postseason with our conference into the playoff? But back to Stanford, the reason I think Stanford makes sense, besides just being out west and being, a good partner for those other 4 schools, they already have a rivalry with Notre Dame. So if you can kind of get them as a package deal, you're suddenly, you already have 3 or whatever of Notre Dame's annual rivalry games. All the Big Ten, I mean, if you want to get some leverage, you just have to say, okay, our Big Ten teams are no longer going to play Notre Dame if you don't join a conference. And then what do?
Yeah.
I don't know, dude. Stanford, I could get behind, if they are going to go to 20, I could get behind Clemson and Florida State. But Stanford doesn't get me out of bed in the morning. Neither does Washington. Neither does UCLA. USC, I guess, and Oregon, I guess.
I feel like if you get Stanford, it makes kicking Northwestern out a lot easier because they're just a better version of Stanford at everything. Like academics, sports, everything about them is better than Northwestern. I also think not that we really care, or the average person really cares, but Stanford does kind of fit culturally with when you look at the other sports. I mean, Stanford wrestling would fit in the Big Ten pretty well.
We'll see if Stanford can even hold up. Their past 2 coaches, right? Currently, they have David Shaw, and then they had Harbaugh, 2 arguably all-time great coaches. Like, are they going to keep that up, or are they just going to get some Joe Schmo and then win 4 games for the rest of the next 20 years?
I think if you ask the average Big Ten fan if they like this, their answer is going to be no. And I think a lot of it's going to be because, like, if I ask Hack, does this help or hurt Iowa's odds to like make their schedule easier? No. Like, Iowa now might have to face USC, Oregon, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State all in the same year. I mean, I don't know if it would ever work out that way, but
I kind of like that Iowa's the only team with the most protected rivals now, or the only team with 3 protected rivals, because at least we get 3 traditional Big Ten games every year. But that might change now since they just added Oregon and Washington. But it's like, if you get a schedule, let's say we're in 2026, schedule comes out and it's Iowa, Washington, Iowa, Maryland, Iowa, UCLA, Iowa, Northwestern. Like, that's a horrible schedule.
Yeah, that's why I was kind of thinking like some sort of pods might make sense, because you got to have some continuity of playing the same teams consistently. Otherwise, you're never going to develop a natural rivalry. Like, you can't one weekend be in Rutgers and the next weekend be in LA. I think that like that makes sense for a bunch of college kids that are allegedly going to class. Like, that's just not possible to be doing all the time.
Yeah, well, how are they even going to do that for the nonprofit sports? Soccer and tennis and golf?
I have no idea.
Golf is just like tournaments, but
that's people. These executives and people making these decisions don't care. They just
Yeah.
care about
They just care about
football,
football. Yeah.
and then a little basketball, I guess, and then everyone else is like, all right, just figure it out. I don't care about tennis.
Like basically all 4 schools, USC, UCLA, and hypothetically here Stanford, them joining the Big Ten, they're going to dominate baseball every year. Those are like 3 of the top 10 baseball programs, and now they're going to come in and they're going to play Purdue, or I mean, they're just going to kill everybody.
That's a good point.
And that has to hurt their recruiting too, because how many kids that are elite baseball recruits want to be on a plane to Indiana in March?
Yeah.
Yeah. So earlier, Hackford, I think you mentioned Florida State and Clemson. Where are they currently standing? What's going to happen with them?
The trustee from Florida State said it's not a matter of if, it's just like how and when they leave the ACC, and the ACC made a statement today how mad they were at Florida State. So I guess
they going? Is it the SEC or the Big Ten? Where are they going?
The odds in Vegas are like a slight edge to the Big Ten, but you still have to think that like SEC has an edge if they want them, right?
Yeah, well, they're pretty much up next, right? Because they're still at 16. The Big Ten's technically at 18 now.
Yeah. Do you think the SEC wants them?
I think they would take, Florida State and like a Clemson. That actually makes...
Both states are in states that SEC schools already playing.
Yeah, that actually makes sense.
Florida State rivalry, you could have that game most years.
Clemson, South Carolina too. I mean, both schools already play each other.
Does Florida not already play Florida State every year?
They do the last week of both those teams, those 4 schools, they all play each other the last week of the year, this year at least.
Gotcha.
I think Florida State to the Big Ten would feel even weirder than like Washington to the Big Ten. Personally, I don't know if the Big Ten wants that for like being able to say, hey, we go from the West Coast to the East Coast. But in terms of like, when I was saying, I think at the beginning I mentioned there's 3 teams that I think have a chance to fill those 2 spots. And I said Stanford and I said Notre Dame. And Notre Dame, I think time is ticking for them, because if you look at that, what we said at the very beginning, the 6 locks to make the playoff are the conference champions. So Notre Dame is going to have to be fighting for an at-large every single year. They have no automatic bid possible for them. So I think that's going to put a little pressure on them. But then the 3rd team was North Carolina. And I only say that because they've been in the rumor mill since like 2010 as a possible Big Ten team. And like academically, it kind of fits for them. And like, it'd be good for basketball, but I feel like having one team out East doesn't make sense.
So the 12...
Go ahead. You're good. Go ahead.
The 12-team playoff, that came out, like the way it's going to be set up, came out before USC and UCLA went to the Big Ten, and Texas, Oklahoma went to the SEC. Is that right? That came out before that happened?
I think so.
So now it's like, aren't they going to have to change the format?
Yeah, they basically made up a rule for something that doesn't even exist anymore.
Yeah, they're going to have to, right? Because...
it's... How long is that contract for the 12-team playoff? Like, if it's for like 10 years, then okay, it runs through the 25-26.
Oh, really?
So it's only 3 years?
It says the original 12-year contract with the college football playoff. No, that's when the original contract was supposed to.
Oh, the original 4-teamer,
but they ended early. Yeah. I don't know. I just feel like I hope they just reevaluate every 2 to 3 years instead of like 6, because we're stuck with the BCS for like 10 years and it was stupid. And then like the first couple years it was good, and then it's not good anymore. And then same with this 14 playoff. It was great, and then it's like maybe this isn't so great. So maybe this 12 was going to be great for a couple years, and then I could see it moving back down to like 8 or 6.
I think you made a good point too, because when you said like they did this before the realignment, what does winning the Pac-12 even mean? What is the Pac-12? Who's in the Pac-12? I don't know.
They're going to have to change the automatic bids. Yeah, because if the Pac-12, so whoever's left, let's say they add like UNLV and some of those schools, you're telling me the champion of the newly formed Pac-12 is an automatic bid?
They're just going to give them. They're just going to give them an 11 or 12 seed.
If there's like, but what if there's like a Iowa or someone in the SEC who's like middle of the pack, or like maybe top third of the conference? They're sitting at like 9-3.
No, you're right though. Like Tennessee in the SEC 5 years from now will probably go like 8-4, and they would crush Arizona State, but they won't get the chance.
It doesn't make sense. I mean, is the Pac-12 going to exist? I genuinely don't know. I think that's you could do an entire podcast on that alone, because right now you just took the 4 best programs from that league, and then you took one of the top 3 or 4 biggest markets in Colorado, because you have Denver. Who's their TV money? You have no Seattle, no Portland, no Los Angeles, no Denver. And now you just lost Arizona too. I mean,
I want to make one more point too about Notre Dame. They already are like exclusively broadcasted on NBC and Peacock, and with Big Ten having some NBC games this year, it should be a pretty like smooth transition if they needed to. So I could totally see Notre Dame in the Big Ten by like 2026.
Yeah, I agree. It's the ACC will probably want them, but I don't know why anyone would want to go to the ACC if Florida State and Clemson leave. So I feel like once Florida State and Clemson leave, there's going to be some pressure on Notre Dame. But real quick before we move on, I just want to say I kind of feel bad for the fan bases that are like Oregon State, Washington State. There's a good chance that they kind of end up left as like a G5 school after this. I mean, maybe not officially, but they're going to get treated as one. No one's ever going to – I don't know what conference is going to invite them. So they're going to kind of be left out in the cold.
A word of advice for all the fans of those schools: just focus on the NFL. It's not as big of a money grab, and you'll actually see some competitive games where everyone has a chance to win instead of it being skewed one way.
Yeah, so everyone has a chance to win unless you're the king. Yeah. Cut this. I was trying to say unless you're the Kansas City Chiefs, that doesn't make any sense.
You're good. All right, so let's get into a recap of last year's season. The playoff consisted of Georgia against Ohio State, which was by far the most competitive game. And then the other side was TCU Michigan, which I guess was competitive too.
Both semis were good.
The semis were great. Slade, do you want to talk a little bit about Max Duggan and TCU?
I mean, I think one of the beauties of this 12-team playoff that's coming is we're probably never going to see a fluke like we saw with TCU ever again. They just, I'm still a little surprised they beat Michigan, but that's Jim Harbaugh being Jim Harbaugh, and they got spanked when it mattered. But Georgia was the best team, so no shame. They entered the year as the favorites, and they won it all. The year before when they won, they were a little bit longer of shots. And then actually this year, between 21, 22, and 23, this is the shortest odds they have to win the title. I don't know if you guys agree with that, but I'm just looking at the national title odds as of this morning. Georgia is the favorite again at plus 220, followed by another SEC team in Alabama, then Ohio State and Michigan. Those are the top 4. And then if you want to go a little longer, it's LSU and Clemson. There's no true Pac-12 team on that list, and that's with USC and UCLA still there. I guess I want to get your guys' thoughts on if any of those jump out to you.
Real quick, can you re-ask this question in like 1 minute? We just have breaking news right now. The Big 12 presidents and chancellors voted unanimously Friday night to admit Arizona State and Utah.
Wait, what?
As well as Arizona. This is 10 minutes ago. All three on the way. So to repeat that, Arizona State, Utah, and Arizona, all in the Big 12. That leaves, does anyone know how many teams are left in the Pac-12?
7?
5?
4. There's 4 teams left in the conference.
So it's
Stanford, Wash State, Oregon State,
Cal.
Yeah.
And Stanford's got to be begging the Big Ten for a spot now, because what's their other option? The Mountain West? Disbanding football?
This is the last year the Pac-12 will ever exist. So the Pac-12 after dark, soak that in.
Who's the Pac-12 commissioner, and how is he so terrible at his job? Like, how does USC just get up one day and like, yeah, we're going to the Big Ten? That should never happen. It'd be like Ohio State going to the Big Ten and being like, yeah, we're actually going to go play in the SEC now.
The commissioner of the Pac-12, his name's George Kliavkoff. He's had the position only since 2021. So literally the second that he got the job, the Pac-12 just imploded. He literally did nothing right to keep the conference.
Yeah.
That is horrible, dude. They've lost 6 teams in the last 24 hours.
Yeah. All right. We've talked alignment for far too long. Let's get back into last year's preview, and for part 2 of this podcast, if there's anything else we need to add, because we're gonna tape like a week from now. I'm sure there's gonna be some other hot topics to discuss with teams moving. So what was your question before?
I guess I was just reading off the favorites for this year. It's a lot of usual suspects. It's Georgia, Bama, Ohio State, Michigan, LSU, Clemson. I guess we have 3 of the top 6 teams being in that SEC. I personally am a little, not to spoil one of my picks for next episode or whatever, but Bama as the second best odds seems a little surprising to me when I saw it, given that they missed the playoff last year with the number 1 overall pick at quarterback. 2, LSU has the 5th best odds, and they're in the same division, let alone the same conference. And then 3, they have their line for this, like the season is like 10 wins, their win total. So like Vegas already thinks that they're probably going to lose 2 games. So that one surprised me a little. They don't even know their quarterback yet. They have like a 3 or 4 guy race. I'm on the record. My first bet of this pod is going to be Alabama under, and that is. Go ahead.
I think what's interesting about the top 6 teams right here?
Yeah.
Is that 4 out of the 6 are going to have new quarterbacks? Georgia, Bama, Ohio State, Clemson. Klubnik didn't play the entire year. And then LSU is bringing back Daniels, right? And then Michigan has JJ.
McCarthy, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think I kind of like Bama out of this list, to be honest, to go opposite of you. Just because, Saban's just stirring inside the last 2 years. Georgia winning it all.
I guess my reasoning is this is going to be the worst quarterback play Alabama's probably had in a decade. Unless someone comes out of nowhere, which is always possible, but how often does Nick Saban bring in a transfer quarterback? I mean, that tells me he doesn't have a lot of faith.
They don't win with they do win with really good quarterbacks, but Coiner, what are those quarterbacks that Bama's won with that didn't get drafted or maybe got drafted but didn't do anything?
Was it Jake Coker or Blake Barnett? It's one of those two.
Yeah, Coker. You got him. AJ McCarron, I guess.
They had that Sims guy the year they lost in the semis, but they made it to the playoff.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. We got so the past 4 years, it's all been NFL guys. Bryce Young, Mac Jones, Tua, Jalen Hurts. Then it's Blake Barnett, Cooper Bateman in 2015. Does anyone remember that?
No.
No.
Jake Coker, Blake Sims, and then you had AJ McCarron, Greg McElroy, both pretty good. John Parker Wilson, good old Brody Croyle. He was drafted by the Chiefs. Yeah, so.
Well, Quinter, are you a Bill O'Brien guy? Do you think he knows what he's doing on offense?
Yeah, I do.
He just left Alabama to be the OC of the Patriots. So Alabama brought in Tommy Rees, the offensive coordinator from Notre Dame, and brought that quarterback who sucked for them last year, Tyler Buckner or whatever. So they still haven't decided who's the starter. So they're just splitting reps all camp. I don't ever like to hear that.
It doesn't even don't they have a 5-star running back?
Probably,
which is what I want to talk about
last year too, and when they missed the playoff. And they also had Bryce Young.
Yeah, but did you see the games they lost last year?
I know they should have been in last year. They're better than TCU. We're better than TCU.
We just hold them to such high standards, and then you talk about like Bill O'Brien leaving. It's like, as good as Bill O'Brien is at his job, Nick Saban is 10 times better at his job, and part of his job is finding the next OC. So that doesn't even matter to me. That doesn't move the needle much.
All right, I guess we just agree to disagree.
Hey, if you feel so good about it, why don't you lay the Alabama listen. Alabama to not win the national title at -1,000. If you feel so good about it.
Why would I do that when I can just take under 10.5 wins?
You just seem pretty confident that they're not even a contender. So if you're that confident, just lay the 1,000.
I can lay 184 and get it under 10.5.
Okay.
LSU, and not to jump ahead to some Heisman talk, but LSU has a QB who's second in the Heisman preseason. They're in the same division. Hack, I know Hack likes Texas A&M. They're going to give him a game.
Watch out for Texas A&M. 20 starters back.
What if the SEC just totally beats each other up this year? I'm more looking towards the Big 12. Texas literally has nobody. They don't have to play anybody. It's all a bunch of just random middle-class teams. Kansas State, Oklahoma State. Oklahoma's not going to be good.
You know what?
They're going to make the playoffs, and you can get them at 25-1 and then find a way to hedge out. They're probably not going to beat Georgia, but if they get to the title and you have 25-1 sitting in your pocket, it's pretty easy to secure a profit. Yeah.
Thank you for saying Texas plays a bunch of nobodies, because our friends at On3 has 4 Big 12 teams in the top 10 for toughest schedules.
Who is that?
They play a round robin, right? Or no, not anymore because they have more teams.
Yeah. They have West Virginia at number 3. They have Houston at 7, Iowa State at 8, and Kansas State at 10 for the toughest schedules. Let me read you Kansas State's non-conference record. Kansas State kicks it off against Southeast Missouri State at home.
Jesus.
Then they play Troy at home. Then at Missouri, and then just their Big 12 slate.
I guess I'm a little confused because I know you just said Texas plays nobody, but these teams all are in the same conference, and Texas plays Alabama at Alabama week 2. So how are they not in the top 10?
Yeah, you're the one saying Alabama's not any good.
I'm just saying how are they not in the top 10, but like a Kansas State's not playing Alabama in the non-conference.
That On3 must really think highly of Texas like I do.
Houston's schedule might even be worse. They play UTSA, which they're actually decent, but at Rice, and then Sam Houston. And they don't even play Oklahoma. They just play Texas out of the top 2 favorite. The 2 favorites.
Yeah, with the new split in the conference, it's not a round robin anymore. So like half the Big 12 isn't going to play Oklahoma or Texas. They're only going to play probably one of them. And Texas and Oklahoma are going to keep playing each other. So I just would have guessed Texas would have been in one of the top 10. But
so real quick with my Texas 25-1 recommendation. Stop me when you think there's a loss. Week 1 against Rice. Week 2 is at Bama. If they win that game, they can afford to lose another game later.
They could probably lose 2.
because that game will just give them a competitive advantage over, like, I don't know, some random team who hasn't beaten an elite team or it's the end of the year, like a Washington who's only beaten Oregon. Those two mediocre teams about to join the Big Ten. So then they have Wyoming, Baylor, Kansas, Oklahoma. I mean, Oklahoma's a rivalry game. That could be tough, I guess, but I just don't see it. Houston, BYU, Kansas State, TCU, who they lost all their good players. Iowa State, their quarterback could be going to prison for betting on his own team. And then Texas Tech. Like, I don't see more than, as long as they get through Alabama, which Slade thinks Alabama's the worst team in college football. I don't see multiple losses on their schedule. So give me the 25-1, and we will talk about this come January, and we'll hedge that bet.
Make a t-shirt. Slade thinks Alabama's the worst team in college football.
That's a little wordy, but yeah, I'll mock something up. Anyone else like any outrights? Crickets, yeah. You guys, I'll just speak for these two. We like Georgia to run it back at plus 225. And honestly, that's not a bad bet, you guys, because they have the most talent. Only team arguably with more talent could be Michigan. Did you guys see what Jim Harbaugh was saying? He thinks they're going to break the record for most draft picks this next year.
Well, I'm glad he says that about his own team. That's nice of him. I guess when I look at it, I kind of want to. I think I'm going to wait like 2 weeks before I play a national title winner, because it goes back to what Hack said, that like 4 of these 6 teams are going to have a new quarterback. So I can't sit here and tell you what I think of Kyle McCord or what's his name, Carson Beck at Georgia. Like, some of these guys, we haven't seen them play, and I'm not going to be some guy who's just like, oh, I watched his YouTube highlight tape. So I'm going to wait a few weeks, get a feel for those guys before I play anything.
I just don't get why people care so much about the Georgia QB. No one was high on Stetson Bennett in 2021. They won the title, correct? No one was high on him in 2022, and he did it again. So why do we need to be high on any Georgia QB when he can just be decent?
Well, I think there's a difference between being high on him for NFL prospects and being high on him as a college quarterback. Because Stetson Bennett was a good college quarterback. I just don't think he was just never going to be an NFL guy, which is different, I think.
Well, he's going to be starting games for the Rams this year. Heard it here first. Stafford will get shut down halfway through the year. And also a little bonus preview to the NFL. Worst record in the NFL this year is going to be the Los Angeles Rams. Just saying.
Are they in tank mode?
They are in tank mode. Cooper Kupp and Aaron Donald will both be traded. At least one of them will end up on the Browns, which will be nice. But
gotcha. Okay. Heisman odds. Caleb Williams is returning. He's 5-1. I don't know about you guys. I don't like betting on like a returning favorite. I just feel like there's voter fatigue and fan fatigue. And I just think people are, we've had 3 of them ever. So I wouldn't put my money there, but I think he's the best player. He's going to go number 1 overall.
How good is he going to have to be to win it again? Archie Griffin did it in 1974 and 75. So I just feel like they're not going to want to put him in that super exclusive list. We don't really have anything other to compare in in the NCAA in NCAA football, but like in the NBA, Jokic just dominated all year and then didn't win MVP because they didn't want him to be the back-to-back MVP. There's humans voting for this, and they're stuck in their ways, and they want these awards to match a certain narrative. And unfortunately, that's just how it goes.
And last year, there just really wasn't USC didn't even make the playoff. And Caleb Williams was obviously, but I just think that they're like, out of all the power teams last year, like you said, Stetson Bennett was he just wasn't considered this awesome player for the best team. Like, obviously if you're on the best team, like the standard for winning the Heisman, your individual performance doesn't have to be as great. Unless you're really high on USC as like a team, I think I would stay away from Caleb Williams.
Last year's Heisman, Caleb Williams won, Duggan 2, Stroud, Bennett, Hendon Hooker, Bryce Young 7, Blake Corum. Do you think Blake Corum, who's coming off an injury back at Michigan this year, do you think he has any chance? Or do you think because he's going to be splitting snaps, he can't win? He's sitting there at 50-1.
I wouldn't take
I don't know. Who's the last running back to win?
Did Derrick Henry win it?
Yeah, I think he did.
And Mark Ingram did. I know that.
Was Derrick Henry like 2015?
So the last running back, we have Mark Ingram in 2009, Derrick Henry in 2015. Other than that, it's all QBs plus Devontae Smith.
Yeah, I don't know. My pick is Michael Penix Jr. He's an absolute dog. The only problem is Washington, like you were saying, if they don't make it to the playoff, or even if they don't make it to the Pac-12 championship, if it's Oregon and USC, then that kind of takes him out. But I think at what is he plus 1,600?
Yeah.
I mean, he definitely he started at Indiana, right? So he has a better team around him, better O line. Showed some flashes last year.
Yeah, I mean, I've looked at
lost 2 pick sixes off Michael Penix Jr.
Yeah, I've looked at like the preseason odds for the last 10, 15 years for like the Heisman, and like the guy who wins is usually not someone who's in that top 2 or 3 going into the year. It happens, but it's not a super common thing. Like just looking back historically, like Joe Burrow came out of nowhere, Lamar Jackson came out of nowhere, Derrick Henry was 25-1, and Kyler Murray was 30-1. Wow. Robert Griffin 28-1. Like I just don't think you're going to make money very often if you're taking the favorites. It just like Baker was even 10-1, and like I feel like he was kind of like on a stacked team, stacked situation.
All it takes is having a really good record and obviously playing well. But I'm sure like Baker's season, he had that shootout with Patrick Mahomes where he threw like 6 touchdowns. Like if you have a couple of those games and you have 12 touchdowns right there, just like totally inflates your odds. And then you basically just have to get to the playoff.
Yeah, my pick. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, and we know that the Pac-12 plays patty cake football, so Michael Penix Jr. could easily have a couple 6-tutty games.
Does that work against him though? If the Pac-12 is now even more than a year ago, it's viewed inferior, even if they haven't like really realigned yet. I feel like people are just so down on them as a whole.
No. As long as they have USC and UCLA, they're fine. He's going to be Michael Penix Jr. You heard it here first. The last QB out of the Pac-12 to win the Heisman.
Yeah,
pretty crazy.
My pick, if I had to pick somebody, like I said, I'm going to wait a few weeks. But if I had to pick somebody, I'd take Klubnik out of Clemson because one, I think Clemson's the preseason favorite for the ACC. That gives them a good chance to make the playoff. 2, he was like a 5-star recruit. We've seen quarterbacks at Clemson have success. And then 3, if you followed TCU last year, you would know that TCU's offensive coordinator made Max Duggan look a lot better than he really is. That was Garrett Riley, the younger brother of Lincoln Riley, who some might say is the best coach in college football on the offensive side of the ball, especially. He was TCU's offensive coordinator last year. He just left and is now the offensive coordinator at Clemson. So I think I'm going to keep an eye on him. I'm going to see how he looks the first couple weeks. I mean, Clemson's line, you can get them at over 9.5 wins if you want to lay 188. But I guess their 3 biggest games are Notre Dame, Florida State, and North Carolina, and those are all at home. So he's going to have chances to play on a big stage.
What is Florida State's odds? to win the ACC.
Oh god, they're second best. I think they're just. Let me see.
Yeah, I can look up the conference winners. I don't want to forget about Quinn Ewers too, the Texas quarterback. If I think they're going to go to the playoffs, I need to bet him to win the Heisman too. He's somewhere between like 12 and 16 to 1, so shop around for that. I think he's going to put up big numbers. He's got Peyton Manning's nephew, Arch Manning, just breathing down his neck. He has to do something to keep the job, so he's going to do that. And I think he'll be at least one of the finalists standing up there. Come decision time. As for the ACC title, Clemson is plus 150, Florida State's plus 175, and then there's a huge drop. Louisville 9-1, and then this is interesting. Drake May and North Carolina 10-1. A lot of people have Drake May as the second overall prospect in the upcoming NFL draft. Do you think he can do enough to be in the Heisman talk or at least try to win the conference?
I think he can do enough to be in the conversation, but
yeah,
I don't think he has a chance to win because his team sucks.
Yeah.
I guess when I look at the Heisman, there's a lot of those quarterbacks that Hack mentioned that are going to have opportunities at those bigger schools. But another name that I have been keeping an eye on is Penn State's quarterback. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. It's Allar, Allar. Yeah. He was the number one QB recruit out of high school for Penn, and he's at Penn State. So he's going to be a true sophomore. He's 25-1. But if you're making that bet, you're basically saying that you think Penn State's going to win the Big Ten. And we're not going to get into that today, but it might be a good long shot play.
Just curious, what are Cade McNamara's odds to win the Heisman Trophy?
I only found him on one book, and it was, God, I don't even know, a lot.
So Cade McNamara just transferred from Michigan to join the Iowa Hawks. He's sitting there at 200-1 on FanDuel.
Okay.
He, in a similar category, he's with Kedon Slovis, who I think is just transferred to his 80th school, and he's with Graham Mertz, and then also Spencer Sanders. Where is Spencer Sanders?
That is disrespectful.
I think he's at Ole Miss.
Spencer Sanders is at Ole Miss now. That'll be interesting.
The Graham Mertz same odds is disrespectful because Florida doesn't have a chance in hell of doing anything. They were on that graphic of the hardest schedules. I looked at the schedule. It's a bloodbath.
Graham Mertz has film of him being absolutely horrible. What, 2 years? See the starter for 2 years at Wisconsin? 3 years. COVID year 21 and 22.
I think that just means Cade McNamara is just going to be a middle of the road QB. But
middle of the road QB is better than Graham Mertz, based on the film.
Maybe. I mean, Graham Mertz is a starting SEC quarterback.
So what?
Dude, Graham Mertz could go play in the Pac-12 and dominate. He'd be fine. Put him.
He couldn't dominate against.
He can't
dominate against.
He can't dominate against the Big Ten West.
He played fine. He did fine. Didn't Wisconsin make a Big Ten title game when he was?
No.
No.
No, he played fine. You say Matt Quinter?
Show the stats.
Can you pull the tape?
I will.
Can you pull some receipts?
2021, Graham Mertz, 13 games played, 10 touchdowns, 11 picks, 59.5% completion percentage. 2020, his best year, COVID year. 9 touchdowns, 5 picks, 61% completion percentage.
Sounds pretty good to me.
And then I guess 2020 last year was 19 touchdowns, 10 picks. 57% completion.
Sounds like a pretty good QB. And he struggled in 2021. Maybe he was literally just traumatized by a national pandemic. So I'm gonna just write that year off. 2020 and 2022, he played well. and I could see him playing well again this year. I would rather bet him at 200-1 than Cade McNamara. But Cade McNamara has Eric All. That's what you guys are about to tell me. He is a 3rd-round NFL tight end to throw.
And he's our second string tight end. Yeah, he said he's got a 1st-round tight end with him.
With Lachey, yeah, I know.
But speaking of Florida, because their schedule was on that list, I think they have a pretty tough schedule. I mean, they have Georgia in their own division, and then they also play Florida State to finish their year. So it would take a lot for Florida to do anything really this year. They also have to play Tennessee.
They also played Utah in the non-con.
Week 1, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
At Utah. So, yeah, that's at LSU. Yeah, they actually have a legit hard schedule.
Yeah, I mean,
so good luck to Grant Mertz. We're pulling for him. Good luck, buddy. Not the Big Ten West anymore, is it?
We'll get you a Mertz jersey when he's on the bench by week 4.
I'll have a weekly segment, just the Graham Mertz update. It'll be a lot of another hum-ho, 3 touchdowns, 280 yards passing week.
It's going to be a lot of 11 completions on 17 attempts for 141 yards, 1 pick, 1 TD, and a 17-13 loss. Oh man!
Only time will tell, my friend.
Yeah, I don't know. They'll be playing in the Insight Bowl if that exists anymore. But looking ahead, we're not going to give our thoughts too much, but the week 1 big matchup, I think, is LSU and Florida State. So I'm excited about that one. Texas and Bama, we already talked about a little bit. Notre Dame and Ohio State will be in September, as well as Clemson and Florida State, which is probably a preview of the ACC title game. Any other thoughts on that on 3 schedule while you have it pulled up? Toughest schedules?
No, I mean, it just the 4 Big 12 schools just jump off the page.
You don't have any thoughts on Iowa State being on that list?
I mean, they play the Hawks, so that's pretty tough.
So for those of you who aren't aware,
but I don't know why on 3 is respecting the Big 12 slate so much.
For those of you who aren't aware, the Iowa State's quarterback, I think someone already said it, but he got criminally charged for allegedly gambling on college sports while underage, using his parents' identity, and he bet on a game his team played. So he's probably done. I don't know about you guys. I think some of this is kind of silly. Obviously, betting on your own team is pretty bad, but I don't know why the state of Iowa is the only team that's looking at this.
It is silly. I just think that maybe the police in Iowa have nothing else better to do than to crack down, which isn't a bad thing. You know, we all were born and raised in Iowa. It's a good place to grow up and have a family. But this is a sports betting podcast, but I'm just going to give some life advice right now. If you find yourself in a tough situation and someone is criminally investigating you, I would highly suggest not destroying or tampering evidence. I would just turn everything in and take your own medicine and deal with the repercussions, and just hope you get off easy. And I'll leave it at that.
That is life advice with Matt Corner.
Yep. Any other life advice questions? Tweet at us or email, and I'll let you guys know.
I think some of it's kind of stupid when like these guys are betting on like NBA. Like there's like wrestlers, like Big Ten wrestlers getting investigated for betting $7 on an NBA game. Like I don't really see the problem there. Betting on your own school, I could see, but betting like NBA as a college baseball player doesn't really bother me a whole lot. Like you said, I just think the police have nothing else to do. And the NCAA probably has nothing else to do because of all this NIL stuff. Like they can't police any of that anymore.
Yeah, good point. Okay, well, yeah, I don't know. I don't want to get too much into the betting stuff. I feel like there's just going to be another story every single week where someone was found betting like $10,000 worth of stuff, but it turns out they just made like $210 bets or something. I don't know. It's a slow news cycle right now. People are just ready for college football. We got week 0 coming up, August 26th, and one game I'm excited for is Hawaii at Vanderbilt. That's going to be a total degenerate betting fest. So get tuned in for that one. We'll be betting the over on that, I'm sure.
Hawaii's actually traveling to Vanderbilt, or is that neutral site?
No, it's in Nashville. Yeah, it's in Vanderbilt.
Good for them.
We're betting the house on that.
Yeah,
that's going to be in our 6-pack.
Other week 0 matchups to look forward to. Like I said, this is 22 days away on the 26th. Navy at Notre Dame. Do they normally play week 1?
Not week 1.
Thing? San Jose State at USC. Ohio at San Diego State. Yeah, so not a whole lot going on, but then going into week 1, the actual week 1, we start games on Thursday, Friday, and then obviously the first big Saturday of the football season. So,
speaking of the Ohio Bobcats, can we talk about Matt Campbell in year 7, I believe, in Ames?
That's a good way to end the show. Yeah.
Taking his football team on the road to, I believe, what is it, Athens, Ohio? Is that where the Bobcats play?
I believe
good old
so.
Matt. Yeah, on the road.
How down bad of a program do you have to be to do that?
He was at Toledo before, right? He just wants a little like halfway homecoming game.
Has a Big Ten team ever done that?
No, there's no way. Traveling to a MAC school? No.
Do they get paid?
How often do you think? Who? Ohio?
No, like usually, like Iowa State would pay Ohio to come to Ames. Are they getting paid to go play in Ohio?
I think it probably works the same. Iowa State probably still has to pay Ohio just to play them, but instead they're going to travel. It's a horrible idea.
Maybe they get a discount. Times are tough in Ames, that athletic department.
But yeah, we're not going to give you $1 million this year. How about $500,000? But we'll travel to you guys to play.
Their athletic director, Jamie Pollard, said that essentially they're just doing it to save money. They're like, we're going there. It's free, so we're going there. You know what's not free? Losing on the road and losing your whole season because of that.
Yeah.
So good luck with that. Which honestly, wait, what week is that? Does anyone know?
I think it's week 1, right?
It's week 3. It's right after the Iowa game.
Oh, I was going to say, if it was week 1 with a new QB who hasn't gotten a ton of reps in, you never really know what could happen. But they'll probably win. But we'll do a little preview into that game. So.
Yeah, I think Hack and I can do our own pod on just Iowa football, but we'll spare everybody. Any initial thoughts that you want to get out to the audience
about Iowa football for this year?
Yeah.
I mean, they're sitting at second best odds in the West, plus 260 behind Wisconsin. That's what it comes down to every year, is beating Wisconsin. This year it's in Madison, so it's going to be a, I don't know. Usually I would say it'd be a 13-10 ball game, but who knows what Fickles got cooking up there.
I think they're one of the more interesting teams.
They're going to be interesting because they have the air raid offense, but they still have like the old roster makeup. So they kind of have like a 1 to 2 year period where they can kind of play two ways.
And they lost Jim Leonard, so they kind of lost some of their identity as like a program, I feel like, too.
I want to talk about Jim Leonard for a second. Everyone's hyping him up as a great coach, admittedly me as well. Why is he just at Illinois? Oh, if he was that good of a coach, why couldn't he land somewhere else? Illinois is horrible.
I mean, he's just a specialist. He's kind of taking a gap year. He's not even allowed to coach.
Yeah, I think he kind of just got screwed by like this coaching carousel cycle, because technically he was still on, because Fickle coached the bowl game with Wisconsin, right? And Jim Leonard was still like DC technically.
Yeah.
So I don't know when
he initially said he was going to stay on or whatever.
Yeah.
He'll be somewhere else next year.
Yeah, he'll be at DC at some big program at the very least.
I think Iowa and Wisco both have a line around 8-9 wins. I saw that today FanDuel has like odds if you want to do like a team, you can do like 10 plus wins. So they just have to win 10 games. What's interesting is they did Iowa at plus 200 to win 10 games or more. But then you also can get the West at plus 260. And so if you were going to bet the Hawks, and I'll save my pick for next week, but if you are going to bet the Hawks and you are going to take the over, you might as well bet the Big Ten West, winning that at plus 260. Because I find it hard to believe that if Iowa goes 10-2, that they aren't winning the West. That would mean Wisconsin goes 11-1 or 10-2 and beats you head to head, and they have Ohio State on their schedule. So they'd have to like run the table.
It's a good point. There's plenty of different ways to make bets. So especially like looking at these season totals, if you have a really strong feeling about one team, try to see if you have any alt overs, because there's a lot of juice you can get. You can bet like, plus 200 for a team to have 8 wins on an over 6.5 if you really think they can get that extra win. So do we have anything else before we wrap the show up? Sounds like we're good.
I think we're good. It's hard to get into some of this without giving like actual picks. I don't want to spoil anything, but I think I'm good.
Yeah. So come next week, we will look at each of the conferences. We'll look at we'll probably just go one by one conference wise. We'll look at the division winning odds, the total conference winning odds, and then looking at over unders or any other unique market that's out there. So looking forward to that. We got Hackford. He's going on vacation next week to Phoenix, and he basically just told us he's going to dedicate his vacation to putting in some research and crunching some numbers.
Yeah,
so
he's going to the Arizona and Arizona State, drop by those new Big 12 institutions.
Mm-hmm.
That is correct.
Yeah, we appreciate the dedication, and we're looking forward to next week. But yeah, you'll hear us again most likely on Tuesday, and we'll have another 6-pack for you. We'll probably look at the upcoming week of baseball, kind of break down the standings, kind of where we're at. I do want a callback to last week's episode. Brady Cheezel did a real nice job kind of breaking down the MLB and especially the Cubs schedule. His plays went 1-1 last week. The Justin Steele strikeout total went over, but the Strider strikeout total went under by 1 because he was only able to go like 6 1/3 or something. I don't think he finished the 7 innings, so that's all right. He did say he thought that the Cubs needed to win 3 out of 4 against the Reds. They accomplished that, and while they lost to the Braves today, they've still won like 14 out of their last 17 games. So they're doing what they need to do.
And don't forget, in the very first, in our pilot episode, I think you gave Yankees minus 120 to miss the playoffs. You've got to be feeling pretty good about that right now.
Yeah, that team's toast. They didn't they just have someone else get injured for them? Oh yeah, Rizzo.
Yeah, he's on the IL with the concussion.
Yeah, so free Anthony Rizzo. Except I don't really know where else he would go. I guess now that the AL and NL both has a DH, he can fit in somewhere and play first base half the time. I don't know. We'll get into more MLB next week, but yeah. So this was episode 5 of the Chat GPT Bet GPT podcast. Yeah, we really appreciate everyone tuning in. If you could give us 5 stars on the Apple Podcasts app as well as Spotify, we'd really appreciate it. Tell your friends, tell your family. I just ordered 250 stickers with a QR code to our link tree. So I'm just going to be pasting those all over LA. So if you're hearing this because you scanned one of our link tree stickers, I really appreciate it. We're also going to be releasing merch within the next couple weeks, probably for football season. So a bunch of t-shirts, maybe some koozies, some stickers. So be on the lookout for that. Also, one last thing, we're going to start uploading videos on our YouTube and TikTok. So if you get a chance, feel free to subscribe to our YouTube and then repost our TikToks as well. Did I cover everything there, Slade?
I think so, sir.
Okay.
Can I call Slade out before we go, or should I save
Absolutely.
it for the next pod?
Give us like a teaser, but don't.
I don't know. What is this going to be?
It could be two things. It could be Caleb Johnson or the conspiracy behind Brian Ferentz in on the gambling.
No, I didn't say that. I said it. We can get into that. I did not say that.
Hey, we're saving it for the next episode. I'll let that simmer. Slade, you better have your rebuttal.
One last thing. There is a non-zero chance that for our Iowa fan listeners, we might be doing some like instant reaction pods. Maybe it'll just be me and Coiner. Maybe it'll just be me and Hack. I don't know, but there's a good chance we're going to have some thoughts when those games are over, win or lose. So if you're just an Iowa fan, those might be of interest to you. I don't know if we'll release them on the same channel or how it'll work, but just a heads up.
Yeah, I mean, we can, especially like if you want to just talk for 10 or 15 minutes. We don't really need to get into betting plays. We can talk about like in-season win totals and stuff too. Or I wish it would be possible to like get on at halftime and quickly post it and like bet and like give like a live bet recommendation. Maybe we can start going live on TikTok. That'd be something we could do later this year. But
that'd be fun.
Thanks
I think you're forgetting everybody. One last thing.
Oh yeah,
our friends are releasing a podcast, so we'll give them a plug next episode. But for our soccer fans, next week, Soccer Pod is coming out, part of the network. So stay tuned for that as well.
Yep. Okay. Thanks everybody. This has been episode 5 of the Bet GPT podcast. We will see you guys later. Thanks.